Already on the live. Good evening, Gordon Causey. Have my coffee. This one says, what does it say? Current mood? Nope. Makes me feel that this is what I generally feel about the current political situation, especially in Canada. Nope. I'm going to be talking tonight about the Liberal leadership race. That'll be the focus of tonight's talk. It's January 22nd, and it's just after 10:45 p.m. Candy, of course, is jumping all over me. She's on my left side. Normally, she's over here, probably on my right side. Whale Oil Beef is here, our friend from the West Coast. Shigapa, lay down, speak. All right, come on up. Come on in. Get in screen. Show your face. There you go. People would rather look at you than at me. So again, January 22nd. So much stuff happening in the world. Lisa's life is back. Haven't seen you for a bit. At least, chat's getting filled up a lot lately. This is awesome. Oh, what a day, what a day, what a day. What have we got happening in the world? More Trump news. Trump dominates the news cycle. There's no question about that. He's never out of the news. And the latest, or pick your point. The one thing I've noticed is something of a war going on between him and this Episcopalian bishop. And it touches on this whole matter of Wokism. And I've got to define that, because my subject line for this video that I'm doing is that if the Liberal Party in Canada, if they choose Mark Carney, if they don't go with Chrystia Freeland, if they go with Mark Carney, then Wokism in Canada should be declared dead, deceased, end of story. And I'll get into the reasons why. I am not backpedaling on my prediction that I think the Liberal leadership race is basically a coronation. I think that it's a dog and pony show, and it's all designed just to make it appear that Mark Carney won a free and fair and democratic leadership race. But this is an appointment. This is a coronation. They do not want Chrystia Freeland as the leader of the Liberal Party. Laura, Lisa's life is writing. It doesn't. She's is expressing the opinion that it doesn't matter who wins the leadership, whether it's Freeland or Holland or not Holland, Freeland or Carney or someone else, that the Liberals are toast. I disagree. I don't think it's as cut and dried as that. I genuinely believe Mark Carney has the capacity. I think he could resurrect Liberal fortunes enough that he could, A, knock the Conservatives down into a minority situation, which would be very problematic for Pierre Poilievre to lead a minority parliament, because looking across the aisle, looking at the opposition benches, if he doesn't have a majority of the seats, he then has to find a dance partner. He has to find someone to prop him up, the way the Liberals found such a, perfect partner in the NDP, which has allowed Trudeau to survive from 2019 until now. And where does Pierre Poilievre look to get that kind of support? It's not going to come from the Liberals, obviously, not from the NDP, not from the Greens, not from the Bloc Québécois. What it would force Pierre Poilievre to do is to put a massive amount of Liberal water into his Conservative wine, in much the same way that Stephen Harper was forced to govern for much of his time as Prime Minister. He had a mandate that Harper was Prime Minister for, I think he became prime minister he became prime minister in and around 2005. And it was only from 2011 to 2015 that he had a majority mandate. Prior to that, it was always minority mandates. And what he had to do in order to maintain his hold on power is he had to give in to a lot of liberal big budget, big spending initiatives, or he was going to be voted out. Famously, what happened was after he was first elected, no, it was after his second election. He was elected in 2005, having defeated the minority-led Paul Martin Liberals. And then he called an election and faced off against Stéphane Dion and the Liberal Party and won a minority. And then with the financial crisis, that was the global financial crisis, it's been so long since I went down that road, but the subprime lending that had gone on in the U.S. that was cratering the world's economy, was forcing banks like Lehman Brothers and other financial institutions. They needed massive bailouts. We got this term "too big to fail," and Harper introduced a budget, either a budget or an economic statement, that basically steadied the course. And the Liberals, NDP, and Bloc Québécois all came together and signaled that they were going to vote it down, and that they were going to go to the Governor General, who at that time I think was Michaëlle Jean, and they were going to ask her to allow them to form a government headed by Stéphane Dion, a man who had received something like 24% of the popular vote in the most recently completed election. And so what Harper did in that instance is he prorogued Parliament, and then he rewrote his economic statement, and the government stood because he engaged in massive deficit spending. The way the Liberals and the NDP and the Liberals and the Bloc basically put a gun to Harper's head and said, if you want to remain in power, then you've got to spend, baby, spend, like there's no tomorrow. And it's the liberal mantra. And Harper caved in. Politically, he did not, this is my guess, politically, he did not think he could survive an election, that he could maintain his hold on power if he was forced to go to the electorate. And there was the prospect that the Governor General could accept this coalition of three parties working together to kick him into the opposition benches. But that's all ancient history. It seems 20 years ago, 20 or so years ago now, coming up on. But now, I mean, it's so funny. That was 2005. And back in 2005, this woke DEI, transgender, all these issues were simmering in the background, but they had no foothold in the public discourse. You didn't have an undersecretary in the Human Health Department down in the United States you didn't have a guy wearing a woman's naval uniform. You didn't have another guy working for Biden dressed up, who liked to wear dresses and with his mustache and bald head, who later turned out to, guy's got some mental issues. He turned out to be a kleptomaniac, like to steal luggage at airports or something like that. Yeah, and these are the individuals under this rubric of DEI and woke and inclusion were promoted to senior levels in the American bureaucracy, and it's even worse here in Canada. The everything that's going on. And what we've just seen in the United States is a complete repudiation of this utter nonsense of men can be women and women can be men, and gender is fluid, and there are, endless number of genders, LGBTQ, XML, and it goes on and on. Even Canada's own government websites will say, that gender can include all of these and an unlimited number of others. There's no end to it. And we all know that Donald Trump just had to sign. He's unbelievable that he had to sign an executive order stating that, in the United States of America, there are two genders. There's male, there's female. And next week, I understand he's going to be signing an executive order stating that the sky is blue. I mean, this is the world we live in, where you have to legislate what is obvious reality. And Americans overwhelmingly endorsed that agenda. As a matter of fact, even some of those who voted for Biden, I imagine a lot of them that voted for Biden, even those supporting the Democrats, there are other aspects of the Republican Party of Donald Trump that they don't like, aside from this woke idiocy that has been foisted on us, where you have to tell people what your pronouns are. If you want to know what my pronouns are, I've got 2 words and the second one is off. My pronouns are obvious. Yeah, there are rare individuals out there like Pat from the famous SNL, Saturday Night Live skit, who are somewhat androgynous, and you're kind of guessing, is that a guy or is that a girl? But now we have individuals who openly promote that, who like being androgynous, who don't like ascribe, because I'm special. I don't ascribe, I cannot be defined by my gender. Oh, pardon me, very unchristian, but symbols. Well, I think hand gestures. I think that says everything in today's world. The Liberals are going to nominate. They're going to name Mark Carney as their leader, and that, to me, if anything is taken from this video, those who ascribe to basic common sense need to realize that when I think it's a slam dunk that Mark Carney is going to win. The Liberals are many things, but they're not stupid. I've got Whale Oil Beef giving me the Collins Dictionary for Wokism. Noun, informal, often derogatory. The behavior and attitudes of people who are sensitive to social and political injustice. I don't know that it's derogatory anymore. I seem to recall a liberal individual, and I can't remember whether it was in Canada or the US, but I think it was Canada, saying we need to be more woke. And it's almost like they co-opted a term from the COVID nonsense, where so many of us who follow the stickers on the floor, put a diaper on your face, put a roll up your sleeve for something that was rushed through the development process in a few months without doing the proper testing, a separate phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trial. Wake up. A lot of people, you'd see that in social media. Wake up, people. Stop being sheep. Wake up. And it seems to me they almost co-opted this term. Oh, we're woke. We're woke. We recognize an endless number of genders. And here's why I think if the Liberals truly want to tout themselves as woke and inclusive and progressive and all these wonderful words, if they truly believe their own garbage, then they have no choice but to pick Chrystia Freeland. The Liberal Party of Canada, forget how old Canada is as a country, we're over 150 years old, but 80, 90 of those years we've been governed by Liberals. And not once, not a single time has the Liberal Party of Canada ever elected a female leader. Not once. Conservatives, Not doing much better, but they did have one, and she became prime minister for a very short time, Kim Campbell. Kim Campbell took over the majority government that had been won by Brian Mulroney. Brian Mulroney won 2 majority mandates while he was leader of the Conservative Party. And then during his second majority mandate, he resigned. They had a leadership race, and Kim Campbell won, and she became the Prime Minister of Canada. And she was Prime Minister for 2, 3, I don't know exactly how many months, was a very short time. She was absolutely destroyed in the subsequent election. But at least the Conservatives have had a female leader. Liberals, not once. The NDP has had at least 2. They had Audrey McLaughlin, and I can't remember the name of the other woman who led their party. So they've had Liberal leaders. The Green Party has been led almost exclusively by a woman, Elizabeth May. And the Bloc Québécois, I do not believe they've ever had a woman, but who cares about the Bloc Québécois, because they're not even a national party. They only run candidates in the province of Quebec. So Chrystia Freeland has to be the choice if this diversity, equity, and inclusion mantra that they want to foist on everyone else. Well, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. If it's good for the unwashed, forget this, rules for thee, but not for me. If the Liberals believe in their mantra of diversity, equity, and inclusion and fairness and all this stuff, Chrystia Freeland has far more bona fides, far more going for her than Justin Trudeau did when he ascended to the leadership of the Liberal Party back, I think it was in 2013, that Trudeau became the leader of the Liberal Party. Here was a guy, he first got elected to Parliament in 2008, so he'd been a backbench opposition MP, part of that spent as a third party, governing Conservatives, official opposition NDP, and then the Liberals. And prior to becoming an MP, he was a ski instructor. He was on staff at a private school where he maybe filled in and taught some drama and French classes. The only reason that private school out in British Columbia hired Justin Trudeau is because he has the last name Justin Trudeau, and it's a private school. They need to raise money. And so having Justin Trudeau, son of former Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau, help them to, bring in the money. And ski instructor, worked in a bar, no experience whatsoever qualifying him to lead a major G7 nation, one of the largest economies in the world. But they gave it to him. Liberals elected him. Well, Chrystia Freeland has more going for her than Justin Trudeau had. She was first elected in 2013. So she's going for the leadership after having served in government for 11 years, 12 years. She's had over a decade. Justin only had 5. Justin had only served as a backbench MP for an opposition party. Chrystia Freeland has been part of the government, the governing party, and she's had a seat at the cabinet table. She's been Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of International Trade, Deputy PM, Finance Minister. She's got the bona fides or bona fides to hold the position. Now, if you're into diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you have a party that during the course of its entire history has never elected a female as its leader, never, not once, not one female leader. It's time, Liberal Party, unless you're willing to admit to Canadians that, well, this woke, liberal, progressive agenda, that's all bullshit. We don't even believe in it ourselves. We're gonna go with the guy. We're gonna go with the, throw it all out there. Go full, kill them with their own empty rhetoric. You're going with an old white guy. Way to go, liberals. You're no different from anyone else. Welcome to the real world. I want to get back to what Lisa said. Lisa, it doesn't matter which liberal runs. No liberal is going to win in Canada as prime minister this time. My crystal ball is broken. My magic 8-ball leaks, so I'm not claiming to make a prediction, but I disagree with you. I do think that under Carney's leadership, I saw him on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, and he was quick-witted. He was personable. The liberals have obviously coached him well. He presented himself very well. I think there's a tendency among conservative-minded Canadians and conservative-minded people all over the world to put on our blinders and to assume that everyone sees the world the way that we see the world. I live in something of a what's termed quite often a swing riding. This will flip back and forth between conservative and liberal. And so that gives me a window on things. If I was living in a more rural area, Brighton, the town where I live, Northumberland County, southeastern Ontario, has had a large influx over the past 10 years, 15 years, a large influx of what I refer to as refugees from the GTA. A lot of people moving out here from Toronto. I like what Whale Oil wrote. He wrote, Justin Trudeau got elected because he had great hair. Yes, speaking as someone without any, Trudeau does have a lovely coif. No question. Danny saying, good evening. He was watching PBR Bull Ring. That's a good podcast. PBR. Production values en masse. And on a par with Rogan in my books. And Whale Oil is writing that apparently WEF affiliations are important. WEF first, Canada second. Danny's writing, only we conservatives see the world clearly. Canada liberal policies are gone. It's kind of blocked for, there we go. Canada last policies are gone. We're coming into an interesting time with the Trump presidency, a very interesting time. I've been saying now, and I work with a number of younger people, one of whom in particular, 25 years old, is very much on the progressive side, but he's a smart kid. To a large degree, he reminds me of my attitudes when I was in and around his age, and this tendency to want to reject old traditional value systems and to say that we can do better because things will never be perfect. There are always problems. And the idea of equality of outcome is certainly attractive. It's a Marxist ideology, but it has its allure. People look and they see the disparity and the inequity in the world, and altruistically, people want to right it. They want to even the playing. They want to bring those on top down and bring those on the bottom up, and let's all be equal. And it's only when you get later in life, I'm convinced, that you start to realize, unfortunately, inequality is more or less baked into the fabric of reality. There's the passage in the Bible that I have referenced before, where Jesus was sitting at table just prior to his crucifixion, and a woman came in with an expensive ointment, nard, and she anointed Jesus. And the disciples rebuked her, Judas Iscariot in particular, saying, look at this, that very expensive ointment, that nard, that costs a lot of money. that we could have sold that and used the money to help the poor. And even Jesus said, the poor you will always have with you. I will not always be with you. She's done a beautiful thing. She has anointed my body for burial. You know, the poor, sadly, are always going to be with us. In a lot of cases, well, that's a subject for another video. But unfortunately, it's a reality that you can throw all kinds of money at some issues. Housing, you know, the homeless situation. You can throw all kinds of money at it with the aim towards eradicating homelessness. And I'm here to tell you that when it all is said and done, there will still be homeless people. Why? A lot of times we're dealing with addiction, we're dealing with mental health issues, we're dealing with people who don't want to be helped. We're dealing with people who don't trust authority figures, who don't want government help because you're spying on me. But Wokism in the United States is dead. And I wanted to just talk a little bit about the situation with this, and I don't even know the woman's name. She's a bishop for the Episcopalian Church of America. And having grown up 10 years in the United States, Episcopalians are part of what is sometimes referred to as the quote-unquote Anglican Communion. Whale Oil's writing something, and Hank's here too. Seems that temptation leads to homelessness, not always. It's an incredibly, I don't know enough about the root causes of homelessness, but I do know enough to know that there's not just, you know, it's not simple. It's not a simple solution. It's not, well, just spend more money, just create more public housing, that'll eradicate the problem. No, it's a multi-layered problem. And sadly, there's nothing that can be done to completely eliminate it. There will always be a degree of homelessness, sadly. And Hank is here from the great state of Texas. And Danny is referring to this woman, this Anglican bishop, as the devil's bishop. And Eat Me, she's saying, oh yeah, I saw her woke BS. And you know, I try when I'm listening to consuming content like that, I try and listen as best I can. And I try and gauge, how do I think this is going to land with other people? I know how it lands with me, but I have my own perceptions. I have my own outlook. I see the world through a biblical lens. Not to say that everyone who disagrees with me, there are Christians with whom I disagree. I mean, just because I have a biblical lens, that, you know, mine is the only point of view. But listening to her, and I thought she did and please don't take offense, but I thought she did a decent job. She recognizes that that Trump is a threat to this woke ideology to which she ascribes. And so it's more a part of the culture war. She's not speaking so much to Trump. She's trying to be something of a lightning rod for opposition to everything that Trump is doing, a return to common sense. And there are those who like to sow the seeds of division. They like to sow the seeds that tell a child that you're not necessarily the gender you were born. You get to pick it. That is cruelty to do that to a child. It happens already, even before this garbage. It happened. Gender confusion is as old as history itself. Children have always questioned, should I have been born a girl? Should I have been born a boy? Even Fred Rogers of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, you know, dealt with this issue on his show in a loving, caring way, telling kids on his show, and he would talk. Fred Rogers was an incredible man, and the way he spoke was very loving and caring, but it was also honest and truthful. Only boys can be the daddies. Only girls can be the mommies. It's true. Everybody's fancy. Everybody's fine. Your body's fancy, and so is mine. And that was loving, kind, and a representation of reality. But the devil, Satan, tells us that you do not have to acknowledge God's reality. You can create your own reality. You can be a God unto yourself. You can do what is right in your own eyes. And that is the ideology being espoused by this quote unquote Episcopalian bishop. Just to put a fine point on this for those Canadians wondering, Episcopalian, where do they get that name from? They get the name from the fact that after the American Revolution, most Americans, I haven't checked this part of it, but I would assume that most Americans were, or a large chunk of the Americans living in the formerly British colonies, were members of the Church of England. And then after the United States emerged as a nation and defeated the British, 1783 or whatever year the Revolutionary War ended. Well, are you still going to go to the Church of England after having just fought a 7-8 year long war against England? No. So they renamed the church the Episcopalian Church. And so they fought, and in Canada, we typically refer to it as the Anglican Church of Canada, part of the Anglican communion with the Church of England, with the Anglicans here in Canada, with the Episcopalians down in the United States. And the Episcopalian Church in the US, as part of this Anglican communion, is very woke, very woke. They were early adopters of ordaining homosexual priests, and they broke away from Rome in the sense of they started to ordain women as priests, and then they went, the slippery slope. First it was women, then it was homosexuals. Now they're all over the transgender and LGBTQ, XML, all the letters of the alphabet, all the colors of the rainbow, and new ones. Because, it's limitless, because God, the creator of all things, creates order. He creates barriers, boundaries. He puts a wall around the garden. Not Satan. Satan, knock it all down. Do what you want. Do as you feel. Be decadent. Decadence is good. Moral depravity, there's no such thing. There's no morality anymore because everything's subjective. And this is the ideology, but she said it in a very kind and loving way. And that's the way that Satan works. That's the way the enemy works. He whispers in your ear, well, you want to be loving. You want to be kind. You want to be inclusive. You want to show care. Well, yeah, those are good words. Care. Care is a good word. Gender affirming care. It's care. Mutilate healthy tissue. Double mastectomies and castrations. It's care. It's because we love you. Oh, this stuff. It is so annoying to try and combat this. And it's easy now. It's easy on a YouTube video where I'm not confronted with one of these woke ideologues. And I have had these conversations, and I have won some converts. I have opened some eyes, but others turtle. Well, it's very complicated. This young 25-year-old kid, not stupid by any stretch of the imagination. He turtles. Well, it's more complicated than that. I don't understand things well enough. He's very indoctrinated. He was probably a good student, probably very good at spitting back out that which his teachers told him to say in order to get that all-important good grade. Man, what a world we are living in. And that's all I really wanted to talk about tonight. I want Chrystia Freeland to win, because my opinion, differing from, I think it's Lisa who said that it doesn't matter, that the liberals are toast. I did, and I'm not claiming to be an expert. I studied political science at university, but who cares? So did thousands, tens of thousands, probably 100,000 plus Canadians have studied political science, and I'm a lifelong political junkie. But that doesn't mean I know everything. I get things wrong all the time. Everyone does. But my perception, my view is that in the game of politics, doesn't matter Canada, US, Europe, doesn't matter where, the most important factor, or a very important factor, is that intangible of momentum. Right now, the Liberals have momentum and it's all falling off a cliff. They are down in and around 20%. I think the lowest they could ever possibly go is probably 14, 15. So they're near the bottom right now. There's no the amount of room to fall is very low. If they can get their feet in the coming months, coming weeks, coming months, elect Carney. The Liberals are getting blanket coverage now. Every newscast is going to be covering the Liberal leadership race, because whoever wins that race becomes the Prime Minister of Canada. And are we going to have Prime Minister Freeland, or is it going to be Prime Minister Mark Carney? And so it's an ideal situation. And when they do pick Carney, because I still think that is the foregone conclusion, when they pick Carney, it'll be a love-in by the media. And all they have to do is get the Liberals moving in the right direction. Since electing Mark Carney, Liberal fortunes are on the rise. They've gone from 18% to 23%, while still trailing the Conservatives by 14, 15 points, whatever the numbers turn out to be. It does show that the Liberal Party has got momentum on their side as we head toward the prospect of an upcoming federal election. That's the kind of language you're going to see frame it. And we see it in the mainstream all the time. And now we're living in a world of AI and bots and digital reality as opposed to genuine reality. And the ability of the powers that be to frame a narrative are immense. And my little YouTube channel, poster child for cancel culture, being old white male, all the reasons they tell me I should shut up and sit down. Well, these are the reasons why they should be telling Mark Carney to shut up and sit down. Sorry, Mark, you're an old white guy, and you're part of the problem. Because according to woke ideology, everything is about power, and you are part of a privileged class, and you have been, just by your very existence, are oppressive to marginalized groups in this country. And one of those marginalized groups is women. And we need to hand the reins over, and because it's 2025, give the Liberal leadership to Chrystia Freeland, because it's 2025. Remember, in 2015, when Trudeau was first elected, he introduced Canada's first ever gender balanced cabinet. And I forget exactly the numbers. It was like 20 odd men, 20 odd women. Perfectly balanced. And he was asked to comment on it. Why did you feel it was important to have a gender balanced cabinet? Because it's 2015, and the liberal left woke media, they just loved him for it. We were on the path towards sunny ways. Who cares about putting the most competent individuals in place? What you need is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And look what diversity and equity and inclusion has done to this country. Doubling of housing costs. Our dollar is in the is at the bottom of the wastebasket. Canadians are, after being at parity when Trudeau came into power, Canadians now earn roughly 60% of what what Americans earn, and that's in US dollars, taking into account the difference in the exchange rate. But it's right now, January 22nd. The Liberals will announce their leader. They'll name Mark Carney on March 9th. Then Mark Carney is going to get blanket coverage. He's going to get his portrait up in Parliament Hill with all the other prime ministers. John Turner is there. Kim Campbell is there, even though they never were elected during an election. They did sit in the office of the Prime Minister of Canada because they were the leader of the largest party in Parliament. So Mark Carney will get his portrait up, regardless of the outcome of the next election. They may even have an unveiling ceremony, and they've coached him very well. He's decent looking, dresses well. He's well spoken, well educated, but so is Chrystia Freeland. Chrystia Freeland, attended Harvard University. It made sense. Giving her the Foreign Affairs Ministry made a degree of sense. She made something of a career for herself in journalistic circles, writing articles for Washington Post, Financial Post. She's been all around Moscow. She speaks Ukrainian apparently fluently. What the heck? Her grandfather was a Nazi, or at least a Nazi sympathizer. That's a well-known fact now. It's time. It's time. Chrystia Freeland for Canada's next Prime Minister. Not in an election, but in the Liberal Party leadership race. Because again, whoever they pick to be their next leader automatically becomes the next Prime Minister of Canada. And am I being duplicitous? Am I being disingenuous in pushing Chrystia Freeland? Of course, because I don't think she had. Then, if it's Chrystia Freeland, I think Canadian society, broadly speaking, we are not into this woke nonsense garbage. Canadian society, broader spectrum, realizes there are two genders. There's male and there's female. Yes, there's certain individuals who are all over the CBC News and who go and watch The View religiously and think that it's wonderful commentary. Yeah, there is a small minority of Canadians who do ascribe to this liberal woke ideology, which is baseline Marxist. It's all about taking the population and carving everyone into just a little section, by economic status, by race, by gender, by sexual orientation, and now, by gender identity. How do you identify? Figure it out. Do you want me, do I really have to, And something I wanted to talk about that I touched on last time, though, gender confusion is something real. And I mentioned before how Fred Rogers on his show, talking to children, very kind, very loving, very warm, but this is reality. And not in a harsh, not in a mean way. And that is my biggest fear, is that with this woke ideology being, especially in the US, where they thankfully, that's one area I'm lockstep with Donald J. Trump, is in this recognition that, yeah, there are two genders. But at the same time, does that mean, so we're not going to have sports where boys can play against girls, in competitive sports, if it's a co-ed league, fine. If you're dealing with 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds and they play co-ed soccer, co-ed baseball, co-ed volleyball, whatever, basketball, fair enough. But if it's a boys league, it's for boys. If it's a girls league, it's for girls. Full stop. But we don't have to be mean in presenting that reality. You're a girl, and you want to be the best, most amazing girl you can be. It's the way God made you. But I don't feel like a girl. I think I should have been a boy. That's common. A lot of kids feel that way. It's been going on for all of history. But as you grow up, you'll realize, you'll come to embrace the fact that you are a girl or that you are a boy. And be loving, be caring, but be firm about what is objective biological reality. You're not helping a child to affirm delusional thinking. Man, this world has gone batshit. Pardon me. Let me read what's being written. Let's see. Oh, there's a lot that's been written. So let me catch up. Oh my goodness, you guys are going crazy. Now, I'm trying to pick. Okay, I'm going to pick it up with Lisa's life, and she is writing, the liberals may choose who gets to go up in the election, but the people choose the winner. And no people in Canada, after we've been screwed so badly by the Liberal Party, is going to vote Liberal. We will see. We will see, Lisa. I'm just trying to catch up. Man, you guys have filled the live chat. So I mean, right now we're arguing what are moot points, Lisa and I, over what happens in the, what happens if Freeland wins, then I think Lisa and I are in lockstep agreement. But if, oh man, I need two hands now. Yeah. Okay, now I'm on to Danny, who's writing, the bobblehead is unfortunately the best choice. Best choice if you believe in this woke left liberal ideology. I do believe that if they're genuinely interested in performance and success and winning votes, Mark Carney every day of the week and twice on Sunday, if they want to have any chance of either knocking the conservatives down to a minority or conversely. And yeah, politics can get incredibly nasty. We've seen it with Donald Trump, and I think Canadians are more compliant than Americans. I think Americans, they have it built into their DNA to say, "Screw you! I'm not going to listen." Canadians, our country was born out of being conciliatory. The Americans, that's a country that was born out of revolution. We Canadians are go along to get along. So, but we'll see what happens. Danny's writing, go Polyev, go. And Lisa's saying, talking about momentum, they're going downhill. They can't drop much more. They can't drop much more. The Liberals, when they poll well, get up north of 40%. The lowest they've ever been was when Michael Ignatieff was the leader. And that was in 2011 in that election. And Ignatieff, I think they got about 17, 18%. And I don't think they can fall much below that. They have a core constituency, people who will vote Liberal no matter what. If it's a fire hydrant running, as long as it's a Liberal fire hydrant, they will vote Liberal. Talking about the cold. And I saw this comment, Hank talking about our media being bought in Canada, CBC, someone else has chimed in as well. But yeah, CBC is government-owned media. It's a Crown corporation. They had advertising, but they get over $1 billion a year from government. And then the mainstream media, which for us is CTV, CBC Global, and then the newspaper chains like Post Media, National Post, Globe and Mail, they get collectively about $300 to $400 million a year spread out amongst them. So yeah, and that was brought in under the Trudeau Liberals to subsidize, because no one pays attention to the mainstream media anymore, not to a significant enough degree for them to be viable. Lisa is saying it's going to be Prime Minister Polyev. Right now, I'll agree with you. Right now, I will agree with you. We'll see what happens. If Mark Carney wins, which is what I assume is going to happen, we'll see what happens. Whale Oil has written that Canada has a government CBC radio commercial Free, only government commercials are broadcast. Yeah. CBC Radio Canada, that's ad free. But the television station, CBC Nightly News, and that, they have ads on that. The consolidation in the Canadian media landscape is just disgusting. But there are alternatives. Now we have True North, we have Rebel News, we have the Western Standard, we have a number of independent news outlets. And don't forget Gordon Causey's YouTube station. But no, all kidding aside, Post Millennial, there are a number of alternative sites, alternative media outlets. And I consider them I consider the Western Standard to be of amazing journalistic quality. Rebel News, I find a little, it's a little lowest common denominator. I've even met David Menzies, not impressed. Met Ezra Levant, not impressed. They're individuals who, they're not a big fan. Western Standard, I think, is excellent. Jay King is here. He says, can't wait for Poilievre to win after the BS Liberal ascension to power of the next WEF candidate. And that's something, we'll see what happens. There's a battle coming. I think with Mark Carney, I think you're going to see them throwing everything they can, the same way they did in the United States with Donald Trump. The only thing is, I think Canadians by and large, I think Canadians, especially in the large urban centers, are far more sheeple and will go along. They're shepherded in whichever direction, and a lot more Canadians will go along. And we have this first past the post system where a Liberal candidate running in a riding in Toronto, they can win with 33, 34%. And that's enough to garner a seat for the Liberals. Let's see. Trying to catch up. The media here are trying so hard to find something to blame Trump for. The climate nonsense, it strikes me, they're using these California wildfires, and there's a new one, apparently 8,000 more acres burning. I forget the name, Newfield Fire, I forget. They're giving all these fires names, and I'm expecting to see them blasting us with more of this climate change garbage narrative that YouTube loves flagging my videos with its lie that it's, a proven fact that fossil fuels are the principal driver of climate change, of the burning of fossil fuels. Yeah, prove it. Show me with all the variables. There are countless other experts out there with a contrary opinion. And Google does not get to be the arbiter of fact when there's debate in the scientific community. Lisa is saying, did you notice that after she announced that she was running for PM, everything was wiped from the WEF website about her? No, I did not notice that, but it doesn't surprise me. Danny's writing that Kevin O'Leary, who owns both a Canadian and Irish passport, his Canadian passport was refused on his trip to Ireland. He got in on his Irish passport. Has Trudeau done to us? He's made a mess. Jay King is right. Do you think the court will force Parliament to back because the pirogue was illegal? No, the pirogue, sadly, I didn't like it when Stephen Harper did it. I don't like the idea of the Prime Minister pressing a pause button for politically expeditious reasons. That's why Harper did it. That's why Trudeau did it. And what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And Trudeau railed against Harper proroguing Parliament, but it's okay for him. So I don't think there will be any legal ramifications on the Liberals for having prorogued Parliament. Jay King also writes, there won't be a new PM if the Parliament is forced back because it will be February 13th and no Liberal vote yet. That's true. If Parliament was to be reconvened before the March 9 vote, then Trudeau's still sitting as prime minister, and then we could have a vote of no confidence. But this is all spitballing. This is what if scenarios. What if I think you're going to see Parliament prorogued until March 24th, is it? March 26th? I think it's 24th. And the new Liberal leader will have been installed on March 9th. Susan Gray is here and is writing, Liberal does not have a leader yet, so polls are useless. Mark Carney will do well. People trust his experience in economics. That's the point I'm making, is that he's all in on all the crap that has destroyed the Canadian economy. But he's former governor of the Globalist Bank of Canada, the Globalist Bank of England. He's been at the Globalist UN. He's big on the environment crap, and he's been coached very well. He used to be lambasted somewhat as being stiff and not personable, with all the personality of a box of Quaker Oats, but they've coached him well. His WEF type handlers have done a good job of cleaning him up and making him a lot more effective as a public speaker. Witness, check him out on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. And a lot of people do like Jon Stewart. I'm just trying to catch up. Danny doesn't like Rebel either, so Rebel News, I'm not a big fan. Danny writes, climate hoax. Look up the Club of Rome, the 60s. They discussed modifying weather. There are international conventions that have been signed that preclude countries, Canada's a signatory, from using technology to change weather for warfare. So why would you have a treaty over something that can't be done? Obviously, weather modification technology exists. Otherwise, you wouldn't need a treaty to prevent countries from using it. Do we have a treaty that prevents countries from using lasers to blow up planets, like a Death Star? Well, no, because that doesn't exist. So we don't need a treaty. But weather modification technology exists. And so there's an international treaty, Canada, US signed, stating that they will not use weather modification technology in warfare. Well, newsflash, the human race, we are at war. It's us against the WEF types. I've got Eat Me writing, have you all seen Annie Yemeni and Sheila from Rebel just pounding on BlackRock CEO in Davos? Boy, was that CEO, he didn't look pleased. Good. I'm not saying Rebel doesn't do some good stuff. I was at December of 2021, I was at a protest at Canada Christian College in Whitby, where Julia Ponesi, who had been fired from Western University for refusing the jab, she was speaking along with a number of faith leaders by video conference. I think they had Art Pawlowski. Get out, you Nazis! Get out! This is the Passover. Get out, you Gestapo! Remember him? He gave a video address. My friend Henry Hildebrand was there from Aylmer, Ontario. Phil Hutchison from New Brunswick. A number of the pastors who got jailed for daring to meet, for continuing to worship in person. Anyway, that's where I met Menzies and Ezra Levant. They were covering that event. But it was wonderful, like 800, 900 people, indoors, no masks, no one jabbed, hugging, and good times. As horrible as everything that happened during COVID was, there are some fond memories I have of when I gathered with people, like-minded individuals who recognize what stupidity that the general population was engaging in, following stickers on the floor and wearing diapers on their faces and lining up to, get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and endless. And I used to joke that people should put down pincushion under life skills on their resumes. The people who keep getting their booster after booster after booster. Danny's writing, weather modification was used in Vietnam to create longer and wetter monsoons. Yeah, and then there was Agent Orange and so much. And Danny's saying Sheila Gunn Reid, who is from Rebel, I believe, is okay in my books. Fair enough. Eat Me writes, oh, hell, America really went full tilt on weather warfare back during the Vietnam War. Eat Me talking about Art Pulowski. Yeah, really outspoken. Never met him. I met Tobias Thiessen. He's from Steinbach, Manitoba. He was thrown in jail because his congregation in Steinbach kept meeting. I met a number of faith leaders. I met Jacob Riome out in St. Jacobs, Kitchener-Waterloo area, who was fined 30-odd. He and his church and the elders in the church were fined $30,000 for continuing to meet. Alex Klusterman up in Peterborough, Ontario. I became quite dialed in over that time with a number of pastors. Did podcasts with Aaron Rock in Windsor. He got into all kinds of trouble as well. Ontario never jailed any of the pastors, but Tim Stevens, James Coates out in Calgary, they were thrown in jail. Tobias was thrown in jail in Manitoba. Phil Hutchins in New Brunswick was thrown in jail. It was disgusting what we did in this country. You could gather in the hundreds to protest George Floyd, and you could gather in hundreds in Costco or Walmart or whatever, but you couldn't gather, you couldn't have 10 people gathering outside to worship the Lord God, creator of all things. Disgusting what we allowed to go on. And sadly, Canadians, because so many were compliant, that's why they were able to get away with it. We had people who were actually thrilled to rat out their friends and neighbors and even family. Because they're going to kill us all. They're meeting in the backyard. There's 7 of them. Yeah, Danny writes, strip clubs were kept open, but banned church. Yeah, and the fact that they wouldn't perform life-saving surgeries and people died, and yet abortion went on because that was essential. Killing the unborn is essential. Saving those people already alive who needed heart surgery. Well, sorry, we can't. It's too dangerous, COVID. The insanity we went through. And it's probably, something is going to come. Something is going to come. I'll end it off with my usual thesis statement about what I think is, where I think things are heading eventually. If I can get my hand away from the tablet for looking at the chat, but what I suspect now is the same as what I've been suspecting for a year plus, is we're going to get hit with so many different storms: climate, disease, economic. We're going to get hit with so many things all at once, and a lot of people think Trump will be the bulwark against it. I don't think so. I think he'll do some stuff that we like, ending this gender nonsense is one. That's a positive. But Trump is also talking about, this AI revolution and private $500 billion investment in massive data centers and electrical generation to fuel AI development and cryptocurrencies, which is what a CBDC is, a central bank digital currency. This is something that's little known. Most here will know it, but the Bank of Canada, the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank, Bank of England, there's a tendency for people to think that these are government institutions, but they're not. They're privately held. These are private companies. Ron Paul tried to make an issue in the United States when he ran for the Republican nomination out of auditing the Fed, because it is not a federal government institution. It's a private company. And that's, just reality. That's, you can check into that yourselves. Don't take my word for it. The Federal Reserve System, Bank of Canada, almost all currencies in the world. I think there are only 2 or 3 economies in the world that are not tied into the central banking system. And one is or was Cuba. I don't think Cuba is part of the central banks. And Iraq was threatening to pull out. That was before the first Gulf War, the first time when the U.S. went in after they had invaded Kuwait. And there's another country as well. So there's so much happening on the horizon. War, of course. I haven't talked for a few days now about what's going on in Israel. We'll see how that plays out. I think the Hamas has scored a huge victory. They get to live and fight another day. They get to dig their tunnels back. They get to rearm and reorganize and make their next incursion toward achieving what they view as their ultimate righteous goal in their eyes. And that is to wipe Israel out from the river to the sea, to kill or drive out all the Jews out of Israel, and to replace it and create something of an Islamic caliphate with Sharia law and everything else that goes with it. That's still coming, but I think we're going to see a convergence. I'm wondering if these fires in California are going to get even worse, prompting a declaration of a global climate emergency or something. Goodness knows. But you know what? At the end of the day, the creator of this world is not the WF. It's not Donald Trump. It's not Pierre Poilievre. It's not Mark Carney or Chrystia Freeland. We know who the creator of this world is. And we ultimately need to take peace, comfort, and we can even find joy in the fact and knowing that we have a Savior who went ahead of us and has prepared a place for us. In my Father's house, there are many rooms, Jesus said. So let me go to Numbers chapter 6. I'm starting to lose my voice. Gone over an hour. Receive these words. They're not mine. These words are in and around 3,000 years old, given from God to Moses, to Aaron, to speak over God's covenant chosen people. And the words are these: the Lord bless and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. And God will give you peace. Even in this insanity, of course, we're going to get angry. Of course, we're going to shake our fists at the cloud. But ultimately, don't go to bed with those feelings. Go to bed, go down on your knees. It's a good representation, a physical representation of the condition of your heart. Bow down. Lay it down. Bow down. Every knee will bow. Every tongue will confess. Bow down. Recognize that this is his world. This is my Father's world. There's a great hymn, if you want to listen to it, a worship song. And I've lost my voice, but this is my Father's world. And I can't remember enough of the words. Listen to some worship music. There's a guy, and I can't remember his name either, but Come Jesus Come is another great song. Because deep down I know this world isn't home. Oh, come Jesus come. We're living in a broken, fallen world. But this isn't our home. So God bless, and we'll talk to you all in a couple nights. I'll just take a final look at the chat, see amen, amen. Good night, all. Bonne nuit, night, Danny, night, And Danny's a big fan of casting crowns. They are good. Only Jesus. I don't want to leave a legacy. I don't care if they remember me. Only Jesus. If you point, forget your, lay it down. Lay it down. Probably going to be my next video. Anyway, God bless all, and we'll talk to you in a night or two. And we'll hit end. There we go.